Hey guys, it's another Friday. It is May 6th. It's the first Friday in May. Ari, how you doing? It's Friday. Here it's actually, not too bad. Actually, sun's poking out. How you doing down there?
Yeah, can't complain. Another weekend. This week has flown by. We're already a week into May, which is kind of crazy. I feel like it just started, but a lot to talk about in the sports world. We talked about the NFL primarily on Monday, the NBA on Wednesday. So we're going to dive more into the MLB today. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's get right into it. We'll talk a lot more MLB today. Obviously, NBA games there were none yesterday, and then obviously we'll get into the ones later today. But MLB will give you a little bit of a standings update after pretty much the first month of baseball. We'll start with the American League East. Pretty much dominated by the Yankees. They went on that long winning streak right there. They are now 18-7. They lead that division over Tampa Bay by 2.5 games, and then right behind them is Toronto, who's a half game behind Tampa Bay, and then Baltimore and Boston are tied for last in the American League at 10-16. Let's start with the AL East here. Obviously, the Yankees were probably going to be one of the bigger favorites to win this division. They are every year, but the competition we talked about in this division with Tampa Bay and Toronto and Boston, who's struggling right now, but they'll find their mojo when Chris Sale comes back. All right, what are your biggest impressions out of this AL East right now? And plus, you see the Yankees run differential. That is pretty much one of the best run differentials in baseball behind the Dodgers. So, first impressions of this AL East so far, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the struggles of the Red Sox is kind of the most surprising so far. We all kind of expected the Yankees, Toronto, and Tampa to be kind of where they're at. I think Toronto was like the betting favorite going into the season, and so they're third place. But they're only three back of the Yankees, which isn't too bad. So I think for the most part, obviously we expected Baltimore to be at the bottom. I think most surprising is the Red Sox being there, but we're 26, 27 games to the season, so there's still a lot of time to turn it around for Boston. But I think that has to be the big surprise. The Yankees went on, I think it was an 11-game win streak, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, they've been dominating. Their pitching has been really good this year. And Nestor Cortez has really stepped up for them in that rotation. And the Rays have just kind of been steady, like they've always been year in year out. And Toronto has been a little bit up and down overall, but they've still been pretty steady as well overall this season.
Yeah, you mentioned the Red Sox, and that's pretty much one of my teams that's been pretty disappointing so far. And you look at that rotation, and you have Eovaldi, who still has a sub-3 ERA, very good. And then Waka, who's having somewhat of a great year. Even though his K to walk ratio is a little high, but then you see Eovaldi, that man is dealing. So Eovaldi is pretty much one of their biggest contributors to that Boston rotation right now with 32 strikeouts and 3 walks. That's incredible. But you look, you pay attention to the bats here, and I just saw this. Bogarts is done with Boston. He wants to get out of Boston as soon as the season's over. So, and Bogarts is pretty much leading this team in terms of offense efficiency. He's the only one that has a 1.2 WAR. He's the only person on this team that has a WAR over 1. So it just shows you how offensively, how key he is to this offense right here. He's hitting 354, 500 slugging, 404 OPP, 904 OPS. Look, it's just showing that Bogarts is so valuable to his team. And then Devers, he's off to an okay start. Not the greatest start for him. And then you just go down the list. Verdugo's struggling right now. Trevor Story, what a big disappointment. That's pretty much one of the bigger disappointments out of this AL East. Trevor Story, they signed him to that big contract. It's obviously they were going to be okay. Well, it's going to be Story at second, Bogarts at short. That in middle infield was going to be pretty good, and Devers at third. And all of a sudden, it just seems like Trevor Story has not lived up to all that potential that he has. Maybe it's a slow start, or I saw some things that maybe he just cannot hit the baseball when he's not in Coors Field, and maybe that's just proven to be evident. He's not hitting the ball well, and it's just struggles in the lineup right now. Mariner fans can definitely attest to struggles in the lineup right now as well. We'll get into them a little later, but Boston one of the more disappointing teams. New York, obviously the Yankees, one of the more impressive teams. You mentioned their pitching. Looks like Garrett Cole is back. No spider track, no sticky stuff in hand. Pause. But yeah, I mean, you look at that rotation: Tyon, Montgomery, nasty Nestor Cortez. He's been one of the more consistent guys from that rotation. Only guy with a sub-2 ERA on that starting rotation. But I mean, Garrett Cole, still 27 Ks. Cortez is having the year of his life. I think the Yankees are, actually going to be for real, and they still have Severino in that starting rotation. And it's one of the more underrated. I wouldn't say underrated. I think it's one of the more consistent rotations when you really take a look at it with Tyon, Jordan Montgomery, Cortez, Cole, and Severino. Those guys, I would say they're about 1 to 3 in the rotation, literally anywhere else. But I mean, and then you have them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Yankees. It shows you that this pitching actually is for real now. And then you pair that with what's going on with the hitting. And the hitting, I mean, obviously hitting is definitely not a problem for this Yankees team. I mean, you see what they're doing. I mean, Aaron Judge is still literally hitting balls so far. It's crazy. I mean, Rizzo, he had that 3 home run game. That was crazy. That was fun to see, though. Stanton, is off to a, not the best start, but, he still has, he's got some clutch at times as well. And then, one of the more interesting things was just more offensively is how Isaac kind of left. He's, really kind of been like a, what's the term? Kind of like been like the glass slipper, like a hidden gem for them. He's not obviously it doesn't show, but I mean, he's hitting 295 right now with a 329 OBP. Like, that's pretty good for him. And he's one of their more, the guy that he's one obviously they traded for along with Donaldson, kind of that platoon at third, or probably kind of at short. But still, it's great to see the Yankees pretty much obviously do what they've been doing. We'll see. It's early though, but the Yankees are definitely one of the bigger teams out of this AL East who probably have a great chance. Definitely a top 5 team in this baseball league right now. But we move on to the AL Central. Right now, surprise, surprise, the Minnesota Twins are now leading at 5-15-11 in that division. And then they're followed by the Cleveland Guardians. Almost had a slip up there. Then the Chicago White Sox in third, and then the 2 struggling teams, the Kansas City Royals in fourth, and then Detroit half a game back at 8-16. I mean, we talked about this division kind of being, pretty stacked heavily in Chicago's favor, and they are struggling. I know you're gonna talk about them, but Ari, I mean, in this division, I knew this was gonna be a rough division. I didn't know it was gonna be that bad this year. What are your thoughts as we get through month 1 of the AL Central?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the White Sox being one of the more, I guess, surprising / disappointing teams so far. But even with how bad they've been at times, they're still only 3 back of the Twins for first place. But yeah, I mean, Liam Hendricks, their closers, had a couple of really bad outings. They've gotten some really good starting pitching from Dylan Cease and Michael Kopech. Giolito missed part of the season early, but he returned. He's been all right so far. But yeah, I mean, their lineup has still been pretty good. Jose Abreu struggling at 229, but Tim Anderson, who's been leading off, I believe, most of the year, is hitting 313. He's been really good for them. Yeah, I don't know. I still think that they're definitely the favorite, moving forward in the division, but the Twins have definitely been solid. We're finally seeing the MVP form of Byron Buxton. He had a little bit of an injury scare, but only missed something like a week or so. But he's hitting, I think, 284 so far. Correa's at 255, so decent, not great. But yeah, they've kind of been a steady Luis Arraez leading them with 301 average, and then Buxton's leading at home runs and RBIs. So I think their team rides or dies, by Buxton and his health. As crazy that sounds as like a hitter, because normally it's like a pitcher who more so. But yeah, we'll see if the Twins can kind of keep it up. But yeah, they're leading the way right so far.
Yeah, I was pretty much going to talk about the Twins right now. I mean, right now it's still close, obviously, only 15-11 for this Minnesota Twins team. But, I mean, they just did lose Correa with that injury, and they just brought up their, I think, number 1 prospect, from I think 2017. So we'll see how he does in place of All-Star Carlos Correa. But you also have Kepler, who's pretty consistently leading this team. He's the only guy with a +1. One of two guys with a +1 WAR. Along with Byron Buxton, who's leading the team. And you mentioned Byron Buxton. Yeah, he's definitely the guy on this team. I definitely think that this is definitely the year for Byron Buxton. He's always been a dark horse MVP, and that little injury scare did obviously concern a lot of Minnesota fans, but he's still going to be that guy. He still hits the ball really hard. We saw it. Seattle fans saw it in that in that first series of the year where he hit 3 home runs and 3 at bats. So he definitely has that power. I want to go into the White Sox. The White Sox, I mean, obviously they've been riddled with injuries, which is no fault of their own. But at the same time, I mean, you see the stats of this team, and it's just there's nothing. It's just a bunch of just a bunch of disappointment right now. I mean, Yasmani Grandal, he cannot hit the ball right now. He's hitting 169, negative .4 WAR. I mean, the best hitter on this team is Luis Robert right now. And that's not saying much. Yes, like guys like Eloy Jimenez are injured, and Pollock, and so they have injuries. That's fair, but with what they got right now, their best players are Tim Anderson and Luis Robert. So I think once this team gets fully healthy, I think they'll kind of get more toward their potential in terms of the offense. In terms of pitching right now, Daniel Cease is pretty much one of their best pitchers right now. He leads the team in wins, ERA, and strikeouts right now. So he's definitely their bright spot in that rotation. So I think it's just, beginning of the year slumps for the Chicago White Sox team. I think once they get more and more healthy, I think they'll turn it around. And I think it's going to be a lot more interesting now with that top of the division between the Twins and the White Sox after month 1. I think a lot of people underestimated this Twins team like I did. I didn't think it was going to be I didn't think it was going to be this close between these two. And I could see this, getting down to the last few weeks if the White Sox, play as hard as they do when they're fully healthy, because a lot of people have the White Sox as pretty much one of the favorites in the American League to make it out and go to the World Series. So definitely can see this Chicago White Sox team turning it around, and it's still close. You mentioned how close both of these. You mentioned how close this division is. I mean, it's only separated by a few games right now, and obviously Chicago's on a little bit of a slump, but I think they can turn it around pretty easily. As soon as they figure out their health right now. But we move on to the final one in the AL. We move on to the AL West, and right now the leaders are the Los Angeles Angels. Wow. They are 17-10 right now, followed by the Houston Astros, and then your Seattle Mariners, and then Texas and Oakland to round out that division. If you would have told me the Angels would have been first place after a month, you know what? I got to give credit to Angel fans right now. Hey, you proved me wrong. But, this Houston team is now getting hot at the right time after, most of that team was injured. Altuve was injured. He came back now, and they're winning games. Presley, their closer, he was injured. Now he's coming back, and he's closing out games for them. So, all right, what are your first impressions? Mariners fans, Mariners bias and fandom aside, AOS, what are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, I mean, the Angels, they've always had the offense, just always in the pitching. But their pitching has been really solid so far this year. Obviously, they have Ohtani at the top, who's been pretty steady. But Syndergaard's been pretty solid for them, Lorenzen, and Patrick Sandoval. So those 4 in the starting rotation have all been, except for Ohtani, the other 3 all had question marks coming into the year, and they've all been pretty steady for the most part. And then obviously, they're hitting with Ohtani, Rendon, Trout, Jared Walsh. They sent down Joe Adell. He was struggling. But they still have so much firepower in this lineup. And there's been some injuries. Trout's kind of been a little bit banged up, but he's been as good as he gets when he's been on the field, hitting .316. He leads them in average and home runs. And then Walsh with 18 RBIs. And then Taylor Ward leads the team in hits. Just really balanced across the board as a lineup. And then their pitching has definitely been better than it has in recent years, which is really all they need to be put potential contender in this division. So we'll see if guys like Syndergaard and Lorenzen, Patrick Sandoval can kind of keep it up, for more than just a month. And then, you mentioned Houston, which then with injuries. Yordan Alvarez was on the COVID list for a while, and he came back. He has 8 home runs already this year. Brantley's been as steady of a hitter as it gets, hitting 281. And then Bregman's bouncing back after a pretty down year for his standards last year. We knew, and Jeremy Pena's really been stepping up in place of Carlos Correa, shortstop for them, both defensively and offensively. So shout out to him. Obviously, we know, being the top of the division for a while, that they had the talent, and despite losing some key pieces, they definitely still, like you said, they're picking it back up over the last couple of weeks compared to kind of early in the season.
Yeah, you mentioned those two teams. The Angels right now definitely have one of the better starting rotations in the American League West right now. That was pretty much one of their big questions on, just health and durability, and they're proving tested time right now that they can do it. We'll see, though. Obviously, it's early. We're only about 30 games in. There's still 130 left to go. But obviously, one of the key highlights of this division is J.P. Crawford, I definitely have to say, for the Mariners. Pretty much one of the best hitters in baseball right now, one of the best shortstops. I will say this on air, and if anyone wants to challenge me, you can. But J.P. Crawford is the best shortstop in baseball right now. You can say if and butts or coconuts or whatever, but I think he is the best. In terms of hitting, this man is the best shortstop in baseball. He leads the American League in WAR. He has one of the best averages at 363. He and Ty France are solely carrying this Mariners team in terms of offense, because they are the only 2 players to have a plus to have any WAR over 0.6, which is kind of very, very spread out when you see how horribly offensive the rest of the Mariners lineup is. So it's kind of crazy to see how Ty France and J.P. Crawford, guys that we didn't even trade for this past offseason, who were with our team last year, are pretty much one of the bigger guys stepping up in this lineup. Great to see for that Mariners rotation. Obviously, speaking of Mariners rotation, obviously struggling a little bit right now. Brash, he just got sent down. His walk rate was ridiculously high. I think he needs to control. He needs to get back.
They're moving him to a relief role, they announced, so he's going to come out of the bullpen moving forward.
Yeah, so he just he has to figure out his control and everything. So he's going to go back to the bullpen. Well, the only bright spot in this rotation is Logan Gilbert right now. He's dealing right now. He still has the ERA under 1, which is ridiculous. Obviously, Ray, he's had some velocity issues right now. A little bit of a down year to start, but still leads the team with 31 Ks. His durability is proven, though. Yesterday's start, he went 7 innings, allowed 6.1 innings. He allowed 4 runs, but still went 6 innings. So, great to see him, still pitch out of that rough jam that he was in back in, I think, was that whatever inning that Zunino home run was. So,
the 4th,
yeah, back in the 4th. One of the more disappointing things is Marcus Simeon of this Texas Rangers team. He was like a top 3 or 2 MVP, AL MVP vote last year with the Toronto Blue Jays, and then now he gets all that money from Texas, and he can't hit the ball. So, it's a shame to see. But Texas right now, they relied so much on their hitting, and their hitting, is not really doing that much. So that's one of the more disappointing things. And obviously, the whole A's organization right now, whatever's going on in Oakland, it's honestly kind of sad to see. Obviously, for those who don't know, the Oakland A's organization has pretty much just done whatever the hell they want to do, and all A's fans are just very upset, frustrated, pissed off. What they're doing now, they're just pretty much just not even going to games. That's why everyone mocks them for having low attendance, but that's just the way of protesting, because they don't want to go to games. They don't want to watch this team lose. If I was an A's fan, I'd turn off every single game. So, I definitely understand and sympathize with what's going on in Oakland, and but it's early. It's not even mid-May yet, so we'll see how the American League shapes up throughout throughout the rest of the month as well. And moving on to the National League, we'll go on to the NL East right now. One of the best teams in baseball, the closest team to about 20 wins right now. The New York Mets lead this NL East right now, followed by Miami, who would have thought? The Miami Marlins, right behind them, and then the Atlanta Braves, the defending World Series champs, and then the Phillies, and then Washington, the round out of division. So what a division this is. I mean, the Mets right now, they are leading. The Mets right now, the Mets are leading this right now. The Phillies are on a crash course. I mean, we saw the game yesterday. Phillies just absolutely horrible bullpen right there. It kind of shows you how this division is going. I mean, the Mets just, getting on that roll. And once they get on that roll, they just can't be stopped. But Ari, what are your thoughts about this division right now? What are your biggest surprises coming out of this division? Not even just looking at the standings.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Phillies Mets game the other day just yesterday, right? Thursday. The Phillies have a 7-1 lead going to the ninth inning, and then gave up 7 runs to lose 8-7 in the top of the ninth. The Mets, and this is all without Jacob deGrom, have one of the best records in the league, and that's Tyler McGill has really stepped up for them. I think he's tied for the league, or at least NL lead in wins at 4. So him, Bassett, Scherzer's been himself, and then their lineup has been really solid as well. They've been one of the best all-around teams, both offensively and, pitching-wise, and the record obviously shows for it. And, obviously it's still early, but second place is 5.5 games behind them. So definitely off to a super fast start. Braves, the complete opposite at 12-15, 6.5 games behind them. Obviously still early, but the Marlins pitching has been really, really good with Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Trevor Rogers, which we kind of expected, but their hitting has kind of held them back. But their pitching has led them to be second in the division as of today, May 6th. And the Mariners saw it firsthand when the Marlins took 2 or 3 from them with their pitching, how good it really is. And then the Nationals, like we all kind of expected at the bottom, a few exciting pieces like Soto, Josh Bell, but not much else.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the Mets right now, dominant in pitching. We kind of knew this was going to be a pretty dominant year for the Mets in terms of how good their pitching really is. We saw how deGrom is, and we kind of expected that. Scherzer, he's having a good year too. You mentioned McGill, who's, kind of being that ace right now from that bullpen. So, leading the team in ERA and wins. But, this dominant Mets pitching rotation is definitely showing out. We knew this is going to be one of the best rotations. And they're not even fully healthy right now. So, because obviously deGrom has, still getting. Wait, he hasn't started yet, right? Or
he's still in the IL.
Yeah, exactly. Like they don't even have deGrom yet, and they're doing this well. So, I think the Mets definitely were a little underrated coming in, but they may be one of the best teams in baseball. But their lineup is obviously one of the more lackluster things. They rely so heavily on their pitching that their lineup doesn't really have to do that much. But Jeff McNeil, one of the bright spots of this lineup, he's hitting the ball well. He has a 348 average. Then right behind him, I'd say Lindor and Marte and Eduardo Escobar. Those are pretty much the 3 guys pretty much leading this team. Mark Canha as well. But one of the bigger disappointments for this team is Robinson Cano. Obviously, they traded him. They traded for him. Excuse me, 1 second. 1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm good. Okay, sorry about that. Hi, I'm back. But Robinson Cano, we kind of fleeced. We definitely fleeced for Robinson Cano right there. He has been one of the more disappointing things. When they design.
They cut him.
They already cut him. So oh well. we'll do fine with Kelenic and all those guys. But we move on to the next team. Atlanta, what is going on with Atlanta? I mean, this team just won the World Series, and they're off to a very, very slow start right now. About a few games under 500. I mean, their lineup, obviously, they're still, working in Acuna. And, he's not hitting the ball great, but, he just came back from that ACL tear, so you don't expect him to be 100%. Excuse me. You don't expect him to be 100% when he comes back, so. But, this lineup, doesn't really have that many stars right now. I mean, you have Austin Riley, who's hitting the ball well, and, they just traded for Matt Olson, which is, the Freddie Freeman replacement, which is doing all right. But in terms of pitching, this team, they had Charlie Morton struggling right now. Ian Anderson struggling right now. Max Fried, struggling right now. So those are their three guys, those three aces, and they're just all struggling. So, that's pretty much the reason. But shout out Kyle Wright on that team. He's leading the team right now in ERA under 2, most strikeouts. Great. I mean, Max Fried's K to walk ratio is pretty good, but so is Kyle Wright's. So, yeah, pretty disappointing to see Atlanta and Philly, just not live up to the potential so far, but it's early. But you definitely shout out this Miami Marlins team. We raved about their pitching. They took 2 out of 3 against our Mariners. Pablo Lopez and Alcantara, they're definitely going to be favorites to win maybe AL Cy Young the way they're pitching this year. So, yeah, and then obviously the Nats, they're just rebuilding. They're trying to get rid of Josh Bell right now, and they're definitely going to get rid of him before the All-Star break, and they're just trying to make Juan Soto the future of that team. So, yeah, definitely interesting. But you mentioned the separation pretty early. You mentioned it's only 5.5 and it's still early, but still 5.5 this early. That's a pretty good separation. And no one else in that division is over 500 or at 500 except the Mets. So, if the Mets keep running away with it, you could definitely see something big happen out of that. But then we moved on to the Central, and out of the Central we have the Brewers, who's had a slow start, but does. Their offense, they're pitching, still doing their thing. They lead the division, followed by the Cardinals, which was expected. Then the Pirates. Who would have thought? The Pirates right now are in third, only a game ahead, and then it's the Cubs, and then the Reds. We don't have to talk about the Reds right now. They talk to themselves a lot in terms of their franchise. So I just feel sorry for all Reds fans right now. But let's get into this division. Ari, despite the Reds' lack of playing baseball, what are your thoughts on this division?
Yeah, we already knew the Brewers' pitching was really good, but their offense has really stepped up as of late. They're tied, I believe, with the Mets and Angels for the most runs scored in the entire league. Well, and then they are tied with the Yankees for the most home runs. So, yeah, we already knew how good their pitching was, but hitting-wise, Rowdy Tellez, their first baseman, leads them with average and RBIs. Willie Adames leads in home runs with 8. Yelich in on-base percentage, and then McCutcheon in hits. So they're really stepping up all across the board for the Brewers hitting, because we knew their pitching with Burns and Woodruff still kind of struggling a little bit, but they have Hauser. Peralta's kind of struggling, but then you have Josh Hader, one of the best closers in the league, so they have a really solid bullpen. So yeah, their pitching we already knew was solid. It was just a matter of if their hitting could step up, and being that they're tied for the most runs as of right now in the entire MLB really speaks to how much their hitting has stepped up.
Yeah, I want to apologize for all the Acuna slander, because he literally just hit a home run, like crushed it. The 450. The man fell over on his side and crushed that 450. So no more Acuna slander for me. He proved me wrong in 2 seconds. But yeah, you mentioned this AL Central. You mentioned this NL Central right now. You mentioned the Brewers, who have that great pitching. We talked about Rowdy Tellez, one of their best hitters right now. This Brewers team, they rely very heavily on their pitching. They have one of the best rotations in baseball. We've always talked about, they have Corbin Burns and they have Brandon Woodruff. Hauser, he's definitely a rising star. Adrian Hauser for that team. He's definitely a rising star right now. Leads the team in wins. Not the best ERA. Woodruff, he's not great right now. Definitely a little struggling right now, but they still have Freddie Peralta as well, who's going to get his stuff. And then when you have the combination of Josh Hader and Devin Williams, when you're set up on your closer, Devin Williams is a closer on literally any other baseball team except for the Milwaukee Brewers, because they have Josh Hader, one of the best closers in baseball. So definitely, this Brewers team, you mentioned their pitching. That's pretty much what they've relied on so heavily, but their offense is doing well. They just traded for They traded for Adames as well in the offseason with Tampa Bay, and Adames is, doing his thing. He leads the team in home runs, but Tellez, definitely leads this team in pretty much everything else. Batting average, yes. RBIs, he's definitely been a big contributor to this team. Christian Yelich, he's trying to get back to that MVP 2018 season, but I think it's going to be a hard mountain to climb. But, just pretty much doing, hitting like 300 around that. That's good enough for this team. So, the Brewers definitely playing some great baseball right now. The Cubs, we knew this was going to be a rough year for the Cubs, obviously building off of their 2016 World Series without their 3 guys who they traded for right at the All-Star break. No, except for right at the All-Star break with Javi going to the Mets for a little bit before signing with the Tigers. And then you had Chris Bryant going to the Giants before he signing with the Rockies. And then Rizzo going to the Yanks and staying there. Right now, obviously, Seiya and Horner, two of their Nico Horner and Seiya Suzuki, one of their bigger contributors on this offense right now. Definitely great to see the future in Seiya Suzuki, hitting the ball pretty well, hitting 250, can't complain about that. Also, Wilson Contreras, he's definitely that one veteran, pretty much one of the few guys from that 2016 World Series team that's still there. So great to see him. Their pitching is one of the more struggling things, obviously. Marcus Strowman. This guy, obviously, he talks so much big game, but then, he's having a pretty rough year to start. 5.13 ERA, and it's a shame that it's one of the best out of the 2 starting rotation with Kyle Hendricks too, who has an even higher ERA. So yeah, this Cubs team definitely rebuilding right now. And then the Reds. Well, you know what? Let's just move on to the NL West. So the NL West, I definitely would think one of the more better divisions. In fact, pretty much the best division in baseball, because there is not a single team under 500, which is kind of crazy to think. Even the Arizona Diamondbacks are better than the Seattle Mariners right now, and that's a shame to say. But you have the Dodgers leading this division right now at 16-7, very dominant. We knew that. Padres right now only a half game behind, a little bit of a surprise, but then again, obviously the Padres still have people more than Fernando Tatis Jr. Colorado, one of the more bigger surprises in baseball this year. No one expected Colorado to have as great of a start. Obviously, they're very, very dependent on being at home at Coors Field, which is pretty much 11 of their 15 wins are at home. So definitely dependent at home. And then the Giants follow them. And then right behind them is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ari, as we get into this last division, you see these records and you see how impressive it is. What are your thoughts? What's going on with Colorado? Do you really see them doing anything long term? And just the start of this year, very impressive year for this division. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers. We knew that they were going to be one of the best teams in honestly this division and the entire MLB as well. The Diamondbacks, it's really been their starting pitching. Merrill Kelly's been one of the better starters in the league so far. Mad Bum, who we'll get into in a little bit, has been really good as well as Zach Allen. And then their bullpen, Mark Valenza's been out with COVID for a bit, but even with him out, Ian Kennedy's been their closer, who's really stepped up as well. So that's really been what's carried them to this record so far. And then with the Rockies, it's really been their hitting. Randall Grichuk hitting 325, CJ Cron hitting 313 with 9 home runs, 23 RBIs. Cron leads them in home runs, RBIs, and hits. He's right behind Grichuk in batting average. And then Grichuk leads them in batting average and on-base percentage. And then you have Blackman, who's been pretty good. Connor Joe's been good. Ryan McMahon has some big power numbers so far this year. So it's really been a collective effort for this Rockies offense. And then their closer, Daniel Bard, I think he's like 3rd or 4th in saves with 8 saves. He's been really solid. Their starting rotation hasn't been great overall. But, especially in Colorado games in Colorado, obviously with the air and all of that, you don't expect their starters to be great. But yeah, I think it's really been between their hitting and their bullpen is really kind of what's carried them to this. What are they, 15-10, I think, so far?
Yeah, I want to go more about this Rockies team. Obviously, you mentioned the guys on the offense side. I mean, Chad Cole. I mean, he's someone who no one really talks about, but he's just getting his feet under. But he has 3 wins right now. Leads this. He's tied for 7th. ERA under 2 right now. He has a great one on the road. So great to see a great start from him. But you mentioned the offense is pretty much the reason as to why they're doing so well. I mean, CJ Cron is playing like an MVP right now. 1.5 WAR. 3.13 ERA. OPS over 1. Then you have Connor Joe following him. Ryan McMahon, Randall Grichuk. And then you forgot about Charlie Blackmon. And they still have Chris Bryant, who obviously is struggling now, but still, this Rockies team is doing fine without Trevor Story and Chris Bryant. And I would never have thought I'd say that sentence in 2022. So definitely nice to see, this team really rally around, the guys that they just signed in free agency or, just have been there for a while. So definitely the Rockies rely on their hitting. Obviously, I think this may be just a start. I don't think it's going to last for a while because obviously they're going to have to cool off for a little bit. I think they'll cool off definitely, once the pitching, starts to settle down a little bit. But playing at home, especially in Coors Field, which is pretty much the best hitter-friendly ballpark, that's pretty much the reason as to why they're 15-10 right now. The Giants, they sit fourth, but it's not like it's a bad fourth. They're 14-11. They're over 500. You see Ruff pretty much, Darren Ruff pretty much leading this team on the off. Excuse me, not leading this team. Pretty horrible. Excuse me. Right now, this offense for the Giants has been one of the biggest struggles, and I think they really do miss Chris Bryant right now. Because right now the leader in this is Wilmer Flores, and he's only hitting 279. Jock Peterson's having a little bit of a slow start as well, but he leads the team in home runs. And then, this lineup is just, not as good as it was last year, and I think that's why the Giants are not sitting in fourth place, just not that hitting power, but they definitely do rely on their pitching. When you have Logan Webb and Carlos Rodon, you don't really have to worry about that much offense right now. I mean, Carlos Rodon has one of the best ERAs in baseball right now, 1.55. Logan Webb, he definitely can get you 8 or 9 innings on any given night. So, yes, definitely the Giants, they are definitely relying on their pitching right now, and it's proven to be very good. Diamondbacks, you mentioned it right now. They're 13-13. Kind of crazy to think that this Diamondbacks team is, actually playing pretty decently obviously they rely heavily on their pitching right now with, how good their pitching looks right now with Gallen. And no one really expected Zach Gallen to be this good, but look at it. He's and then obviously there's Madison Bumgarner. A lot of people have been questioning as to why he went to Arizona in the first place, but he got his money and he's having a pretty good year so far. And then Kelly, you mentioned Merrill Kelly. He's having one of his best starts so far. He leads his team in wins, ERA, and strikeouts. So you definitely see him. Melanson's a pretty decent closer for them as well. This Diamondbacks team is really, turning some heads a little bit. But speaking of Madison Bumgarner, we're gonna get right into it. This happened in, I believe this was game 1 of the series between the Marlins and the Diamondbacks. Pretty much early in the game. No, this was Tuesday. I believe this was Tuesday.
Yeah, it was after the first inning.
Yeah, this was right after the first inning. Bumgarner, the story of how they changed the rule. They made the rule change of obviously expecting pitchers' hands and gloves after the first inning of play because of the big suspicion of people cheating and all that stuff. So, but they inspected Bumgarner's hand just to make a simple check, and that turned into this whole debate. Bumgarner got ejected. He was yelling, and this was Wednesday, so this was 2 days ago.
The thing is, the umpire wasn't even looking at his hands. He was staring at Bumgarner, trying to get him. He's trying to get him to say something, and obviously Bumgarner's the type of guy who's not gonna just stand down or whatever if an ump's doing that. He's not even expecting his hand. He's touching his hand while staring at him, and that got Bumgarner to say some words and then ejected after 1 inning. So I don't know what. I haven't seen any more background as to what happened. I'm not sure if I think there are some calls in the first inning that Bumgarner disagreed with, so I don't know if it had to do with that. But it was definitely, and it wasn't even the first. It wasn't even the first time that home plate ump has gone to a staring contest with a player. I think it was Jose Bautista when he took the Blue Jays years ago. Similar thing happened, not ejection, but Bautista was in the field and they were staring at each other. So definitely one of the weirder instances of something like this happening.
Yeah, Bumgarner's ejection. I'm reading an article about it right now, and the home plate umpire, which was Dan Bellino, he was saying that Bumgarner said some profanity toward him, but he didn't think that was a factor in the ejection. So this is anything. This is pretty much one of the more stranger ones I have to say I've seen. You saw obviously, there was that early homer he gave up in that first inning, but then he just retired the side. He was just going to go down for his foreign substance check, and then all of a sudden there was just words going on between him and the home plate umpire you mentioned. Obviously, Bumgarner maybe was not liking a lot of the locations. The calls at home plate on his pitches. Maybe some location issues, but yeah, it was pretty much one of the more interesting, stranger ejections. He only lasted 1 inning, and then all of a sudden he's just gone like that. So, yeah, definitely interesting to say. It was only a second ejection, which is kind of crazy for Bumgarner because he's not usually someone who is super emotional on the mound. He just does his stuff and does it with a calm composure. But he does hit homers though. But Bumgarner can hit the ball well, so that was pretty much one of the bigger things he's known for. But yeah, this was definitely interesting. This is one of the more interesting series. It just happened definitely because Arizona, Miami, obviously. Zach Gallen and Zach Gallen and Jazz Chisholm Jr. I don't want to say beef, but kind of rivalry that they have going. I believe it was Chisholm who said like he wants the homer off of Gallen, and then Gallen pretty much just shut out Chisholm. I think it was game 1 where he shut him out, and then after the game happened, there was some chirping going from Gallen's side. So this whole series is definitely interesting to see. I don't think this Bumgarner thing is going to go any further than it already has, but definitely interesting to see. It really seemed like it just stemmed from nothing, but then it became something so big. But I mean, that's how MLB umpires are nowadays. It's you say one little thing, and then all of a sudden it's like you're out of here. So, yeah, definitely something to maybe just think about or pass on for this Diamondbacks team. They do play the Rockies in a 3-game series at home coming up soon, so we'll see how that goes for that division. But now, pretty much, we're just going to give you a little bit of an update for the NBA playoffs. Obviously, no games yesterday. Obviously, as it was a travel day for pretty much all the other teams. But the Phillies, it's not the Phillies. The Philadelphia 76ers are currently hosting Miami Heat right now. It is in the third quarter. Sixers are up by 6, 51-45. You look at the team stats right now in the box score. Pretty much, it's the Jimmy Butler show. Plus some extras for this Miami team right now. Butler's right now 6 of 14 from the field, 15 points, 7 boards. Tyler Hero cannot make a shot. He's 3 of 11 off the bench. Not the greatest shooting day for this team. Only 21% from 3-point range right now, 34.6% from the field. Meanwhile, for this Sixers team right now, obviously Joel Embiid is coming back in, and obviously he has the mask on, so it's the mask Embiid. So definitely one of the bigger storylines in this game, but also, the scoring is pretty well distributed with James Harden, 15 points right now. He's leading the team. And then
James Harden has 4 fouls, though, so that's something that he's in foul trouble right now.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's one of the bigger things. He's definitely in foul trouble. And then Danny Green, the second leading scorer, he has 3, but he's 4 for 5 from 3. So it looks like Danny Green, has that one occasional game in the playoffs where he actually can shoot the ball well. And then Joel Embiid, he's struggling right now. He's 3 of 9 from the field, but it's his first game back after an injury, and he still has that bad thumb. And then Tobias Harris, he just cannot make a shot. 6 points, 9 rebounds. So this game is still in the third quarter, so it's kind of early, but Sixers do have a 5-point lead. And then the next game after that is Suns Mavs tonight, and then obviously tomorrow we have the other the game 3s between the Grizzlies and the Warriors, and then Celtics Bucks, and then Sundays are game 4s and Mondays are also game 4s. We'll wrap up that weekend of basketball with you on Monday when we come back for the new episode. All right, do you have any last things you want to say real quick?
I think that was it for today.
Yeah, so Monday we'll catch you up with the NBA playoffs. We'll give you a little update there. We'll also give you a little update with our Mariners, seeing how they do this weekend, hosting Tampa Bay for the 4-game series before they host the struggling Philadelphia Phillies after that. So keep up on the lookout. We'll keep you updated with everything. But this has been another episode of AKP Sports Talk. We will see you guys on Monday.